Tonight, Donald Trump drops a punishing new tariff threat in a direct letter to Mark Carney.
Asterisk tonight, a thunderous wave rocks North America's trade landscape. Former U.S. President Donald J. Trump has fired off a sharply worded letter aimed directly at Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, and within it, a seismic shock, a threat of immediate 35% tariffs on all Canadian exports to the United States. It wasn't just a warning, it was a sword disguised as paperwork. In one single document, the tone of diplomatic trade relations was replaced with the thunder of economic warfare. Trump's message wasn't cloaked in ambiguity. He warned, quite plainly, that should Canada dare to retaliate, he would stack further tariffs on top of the initial 35%. Any increase on your end, Trump wrote, will simply be added to ours. This isn't policy. This is economic coercion at its most brutal. Canada, whose industries thrive on the free movement of lumber, auto parts, rare earth minerals, and agricultural goods across the border, has suddenly been yanked into an economic standoff. Trump isn't requesting a seat at the negotiation table. He's flipping the table over, and the message to Canadian leaders is loud and chilling. Play by my rules or pay the price. What once was a partnership now resembles hostage diplomacy. Trump's approach ignores international trade norms. It isn't strategy, it's sabotage, executed with a pen and sealed in silence. There are no detailed demands, no list of objectives, just shifting threats, and this deliberate ambiguity is a tactic. By refusing to state clearly what he wants, Trump keeps his adversaries spinning in place, unable to prepare a defense or offer a compromise. Asterisk for Canadians. This isn't just a tariff, it's an existential crisis. From the offices of Parliament Hill to auto assembly lines in Ontario, fear is spreading. Politicians warn of broken supply chains, investors scramble for clarity, and workers in core industries wonder whether their next paycheck will arrive. One Canadian official described the maneuver as a hostage situation in a business suit. Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, a conservative who typically avoids federal feuds, has broken ranks with Washington. "We love America," he said, "but this is beyond negotiation. This is economic blackmail." The impact is already real. Two major air ambulances that serve critical rescue missions in Toronto have been grounded, not due to mechanical failures, but because their parts sourced from US manufacturers are trapped in customs limbo due to Trump's tariff disruption. It's no longer just about GDP and balance sheets. It's about lives. Asterisk meanwhile, Trump's silence on specifics has prompted speculation across media and political circles. Is this about Canada's digital services tax? Is he pressuring Ottawa to abandon long-held agricultural protections? Or is it something else entirely, a move to drag Canada into a trade corner where American interests dictate every economic decision north of the border? Without clarity, speculation becomes chaos. One insider compared the move to a psychological operation. "This isn't negotiation," they said. "This is manipulation through uncertainty." Trump knows the power of instability. He's not trying to break Canada's economy with force. He's trying to exhaust it with confusion, draining its will to resist before the real demands even arrive. Asterisk at the heart of Canada's response is Mark Carney. Calm, calculated, and composed, Carney is attempting to steer a fractured system back to coherence. But his critics, both inside and outside his party, are gaining momentum. The Bloc Québécois has accused him of clinging too tightly to fossil fuel markets and ignoring the urgency of trade diversification. His defenders claim he is forging ahead with new partnerships, opening trade routes with the EU and Asia, and building what he calls a single Canadian economy. But even those words carry weight. They're not just slogans. They're strategic declarations, signals to Washington that Canada will not remain America's economic understudy forever. Asterisk, yet the pressure is undeniable. In backroom meetings and press briefings, Canadian officials weigh two options: comply and maintain access to the U.S. market, or resist and face a punishing economic winter. Ford's fiery declaration, "No more reliance on Washington," may play well on the nightly news, but implementing independence in an economy as intertwined as Canada's is no small feat. For decades, the two nations built supply chains that crossed the border like veins, feeding each other's manufacturing cores. Severing those ties isn't like flipping a switch. It's like rewiring a living organism. Asterisk, but as Trump doubles down, Canadian officials are beginning to view his tactics as more than just economic threats. They see a pattern. Trump is reviving every grievance ever lodged against Canada, some dating back to Clinton-era trade friction, and weaponizing them into a new form of economic domination. Digital taxes, telecom restrictions, supply management, each has now become a target, and each is being used to corner Canada into a unilateral surrender. What Trump is proposing is not fairness, it's forced submission. Either Canada changes its national policies to suit American interests, or it faces financial ruin. Asterisk, the president of Unifor, representing over 300,000 Canadian workers in auto and steel, used one word to describe Trump's strategy: extortion. That's not hyperbole. That's a legal term. Canada's labor unions are drawing lines, and they're doing so loudly. They are not just resisting for economic reasons, they are fighting for the soul of Canadian sovereignty. The implication is clear. If Canada caves on one policy, more demands will follow. The question isn't just whether Carney can negotiate a deal, it's whether he can defend Canada's ability to govern itself economically, free from foreign coercion. Meanwhile, Trump revealed his deeper intent. In a separate statement, he offered Canadian companies a way out. Relocate to the US and skip the tariffs altogether. We'll fast-track your approvals, he said. Move here, and the penalties disappear. It's not an offer, it's a threat disguised as a deal. Trump isn't just using tariffs as punishment. He's using them as bait, luring factories out of Canada, draining its industrial base under the pretense of economic opportunity. This is not protectionism, it's industrial conquest. And if Canada doesn't counter swiftly, the damage may become permanent. Asterisk, the threat is clear, and the timeline is tight. With just weeks until the proposed tariff deadline of August 1st, Canada stands on the edge of an economic cliff. Investors are jittery. Small businesses are bracing for cost spikes, and factories are already considering layoffs or relocation. Behind closed doors, some industry leaders have even begun contacting U.S. intermediaries to understand what it would take to move operations south. Trump's tactic isn't just causing panic. It's prompting real-time shifts in economic planning. Capital is mobile, and Trump knows it. He doesn't have to bomb a factory to destroy it. All he needs to do is make it cheaper and easier to rebuild one across the border. That's the silent weapon. Bureaucracy as battlefield. Canadian economists warn that the longer this uncertainty lingers, the deeper the wounds will cut. And it's not just about costs, it's about confidence. When businesses lose faith in government protection or predictability, they begin to act alone, often in self-preserving ways that hurt national interests. Already, discussions are circulating about which Canadian sectors are most vulnerable. From precision manufacturing in Quebec to energy production in Alberta, the dominoes are lined up. Trump isn't just betting on Canada's weakness, he's engineering it. And unless Canada decisively repositions its economy, the shockwaves from this tariff war could reshape the nation's trade profile for a generation. Mark Carney, sensing the urgency, has begun a subtle shift in tone. Gone is the patient diplomat. In his latest statement, he invoked national resilience and framed the crisis as a moment of collective reinvention. He spoke not only of trade adjustments but of building a self-reliant Canadian economy insulated from future political shocks. His words were carefully chosen, not as retaliation, but as reformation. We are creating one Canadian economy, he said, backed by projects of national interest, designed to shield our future from foreign volatility. Behind the scenes, provincial premiers are being looped into a unified front. One not built on emotion, but on coordinated strategy. What was once a decentralized collection of regional economies is being sculpted rapidly into a singular, fortified economic core. Yet even within Canada's own borders, consensus is elusive. Critics in Parliament argue that Carney's response is too slow, too polite. The Bloc Québécois leader launched a blistering critique, suggesting the Prime Minister is overly focused on oil markets at the expense of innovation and tech sector expansion. Others warn that Canada cannot afford another digital services tax retreat like the one Trump bullied Carney into canceling months earlier. The fear is real that Canada, in the name of preserving temporary calm, may surrender long-term sovereignty. The digital tax collapse, once seen as a minor concession, now looms as a cautionary tale. If Trump succeeds in dismantling Canada's supply management system, a key pillar protecting domestic dairy and agriculture, it would not only alter rural economies, but also signal that Canadian policy is up for sale. This fear is echoed in pharma cooperatives and rural councils across Quebec and Saskatchewan, where supply management isn't just economic, it's cultural. It's a statement that Canada values food security, local production, and price stability. Trump doesn't see that nuance. To him, it's another trade irritant, an old thorn he's determined to pull, no matter the blood it draws. But for Canadians, the threat is existential. Remove supply management, and what's next? Pharmaceutical pricing, water rights. This isn't about tariffs anymore. It's about who gets to write the rules of Canada's economic future. In press rooms and diplomatic lounges, Canada's trade veterans are urging caution, but also action. Hope, one senior negotiator said, is not a plan. 11 days, the time remaining before the supposed tariff trigger, is not enough to build a new economic shield. And Trump's unpredictability makes any negotiation akin to building a bridge during an earthquake. Carney, for all his calm demeanor, must now decide whether to gamble on Trump's volatility or confront it head-on with structural change. His critics are growing louder. And in politics, perception moves faster than policy. Doug Ford, typically a political outlier, has emerged as a surprising unifier. In back-to-back press briefings, he pledged to spend whatever it takes to protect Ontario jobs, families, and businesses. He admitted what few dared to say. The supply chains Canada once trusted are now broken, and America's political landscape is too unstable to count on. His resolve, at once practical and passionate, is being echoed by trade unions and industry councils alike. This isn't about partisanship anymore. It's about survival. Ford's declarations, raw and unapologetic, have given voice to millions of Canadians who feel the foundations shaking under their feet. Meanwhile, the realignment of Canadian diplomacy is already underway. Behind closed doors, deals are being discussed with India, South Korea, Germany, and even Latin American blocs. The aim is diversification, not just in products, but in partners. Every new agreement signals to Washington, you are not the only option. Trump's tariff war may end up accelerating a tectonic shift in global alliances, one where Canada carves out a new identity, not as a U.S. appendage, but as an independent node in the global network. Carney's blueprint to strengthen ties with Europe and Asia, once seen as long-term vision, is now an urgent necessity. Union leaders, particularly from auto and steel sectors, are sharpening their rhetoric. We will not be intimidated, said the head of UNIFER. This is extortion, plain and simple. The word echoes across media headlines, amplifying public awareness of just how deeply Trump's threats are felt. These aren't political disagreements. They are existential threats to families, to communities built around foundries, mines, and assembly lines. And when those communities hear that Trump wants them to pack up and move south, the insult is as personal as it is political. Canada's workers are no longer pleading. They are preparing, not just to defend, but to rebuild. At the core of Trump's strategy is a hidden blueprint: economic colonization through manufacturing migration. By making production in Canada more expensive and regulatory relief in the U.S. more attractive, he is laying out a dangerous roadmap. Abandon your country, and we'll reward you. But Canada knows the truth. Once a factory closes, it rarely comes back. Once a workforce disperses, communities hollow out. This isn't just free market competition, it's a forced evacuation of national industry. Canada is now in a position where resistance is no longer a choice, it is a requirement. There's a growing realization among Canadians that this moment will define a generation. Economic pain may be unavoidable, but economic surrender is optional. And while Trump's tactics may deliver short-term disruption, Canada's counterattack must be designed for long-term security. This means investment in domestic production, automation, green tech, and food independence. It means rethinking the very assumptions that underpinned NAFTA and USMCA. The notion that Canada must always bend when America leans must be put to rest, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Canada's federal cabinet is reportedly split on how hard to push back. Some urge.com, hoping Trump's aggression will fade. Others argue that if Canada doesn't stand up now, it never will. In particular, voices from Western provinces are demanding a show of strength, a declaration that Canada will no longer build policies based on fear of foreign reaction, and Carney's legacy may hinge on what he does in the next 11 days. The countdown isn't just toward tariffs. It's toward a defining line between submission and sovereignty. Amid this chaos, the international community is watching. Allies in Europe, trade blocs in Asia, and even neutral observers in Africa are gauging how Canada handles its closest ally, becoming its biggest economic threat. If Canada can weather this storm, resist the intimidation, and emerge with a stronger, more independent trade framework, it will become a model for mid-sized powers globally. If it folds, it may confirm to the world that even the most peaceful democracies can be reshaped by brute economic force. And then, there's the human cost. In British Columbia, a copper mine has suspended expansion plans. In Newfoundland, a seafood exporter is delaying shipments. Across Ontario, retailers are preparing for price hikes, and parents, everyday Canadians, are beginning to worry about food prices, medicine delays, and school budgets. This is not just a political issue anymore. It's a pocketbook crisis. And every day without resolution erodes public confidence, not only in Washington but in Ottawa's ability to respond. This moment has also sparked a cultural awakening. The phrase economic sovereignty is no longer confined to think tanks and white papers. It's on lips in grocery stores, boardrooms, and factory floors. Canadians are beginning to ask what it really means to be economically independent. And while the answer may be complex, the motivation is simple. Never again should another country's leader be able to bring an entire economy to its knees with a signature. The final test will be whether Canada's leaders can match Trump's aggression with intelligent resilience. This isn't about mimicking his threats, it's about building an economy so strong, so diversified, and so unified that no external pressure can shake it. That means putting aside partisan fights, fast-tracking innovation zones, and reforming internal trade barriers that have long divided provinces. If Canada can become stronger within, no pressure from without can prevail. Asterisk as the clock ticks down toward Trump's August 1st deadline. Every decision, every statement, and every policy shift matters. Will Canada rise with courage or retreat with caution? The world is watching, and history is writing its judgment in real time. Asterisk